Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm coming at you with another video in which I'm going to be covering all the news, all the topics, all the trades, all the drops that have gone down so far in this off-season of the Overwatch League. Make sure you stay till the end because you might not have heard about some of these changes, so without further ado, let's get into it. So let's kick things off with the Toronto Defiant. Now the Toronto Defiant have made massive changes already in this off-season. They've dropped every single one of their players other than Hisu. So now I'll quickly go over all the players from this team that got dropped that I think will find a new home, and also I'll talk a bit about why Hisu is staying and what that means for this team. So first of all, I think quite an obvious one is Lastro, and I think he definitely will find a home. Lastro's been in the Overwatch League for 2 seasons now, and both seasons he's impressed me. So 2 seasons ago on the LA Valiant, he was a standout player by far. Everyone was hyping him up because he was really good in that season. And then, even when the Toronto Defiant weren't doing too good, I could recognise Lastro as being a big influence in Toronto Defiant's play and in their wins. If Lastro doesn't get picked up by a team, I would be absolutely shocked. Not only could he join those bottom tier teams that will take whatever they can get, but I could also see Lastro succeeding on a higher level team and pushing for wins. And I think high level teams would be happy to have him. So next up, I'll talk about Sado. Now you'll see in this video, every single tank that's been dropped, I'm unsure about whether they will be picked up for a team next season, purely because of how much the tank role has changed going into Overwatch 2. I do think, though, many teams are going to be picking up multiple tanks more than they really need, just to make sure they have all bases covered and they're not a step behind when they get into Overwatch 2, finding out that the tanks they have are pretty much useless. That fact alone makes me quite confident that Sado should find a new home unless he decides not to go anyway, but even if that wasn't the case, even if teams were just picking up 1 or 2 tanks, I think Sado could still find a home in the Overwatch League because he's just that good. His peak potential is too high, I think, to go unnoticed. Then again, not to mention the fact that he has great experience under his belt, which I think will actually be extremely valuable as we go into Overwatch 2, where we're kind of expecting to see lots of up-and-coming players, new players that haven't been in the league before. Sado could really guide them through and make them great players. So next I'll talk about Aspire, and Aspire I am extremely confident will find a place in the Overwatch League next season. Aspire impressed me a ridiculous amount last season. He was absolutely incredible on that Toronto Defiant roster, which is full of veterans who should probably be the ones popping off and showing this new guy how it's done. But Aspire was carrying them through it, and many times. I mean, Aspire could go to most places. I could see him be picked up by a top tier team, similar to how Shock picked up Nero, and go down that sort of path, but also I could see Aspire go to the Florida Mayhem if their idea of picking up the entire of the American Tornado does actually go through, because he's familiar with most of those players. So if that does happen, I think that's the perfect home for Aspire. But then again, as I mentioned, I could see him go to an already top tier team and really be guided to be one of the best players in the league. Now, from what we know so far, Hisu's going to be staying with this roster because he's not been dropped yet, whereas everyone else has. So I guess they're going to be rebuilding this team around him. If you've watched my channel for a while now, you'll know I'm a big Hisu fan, so I'm not shocked to see him staying here. Last season, he was most definitely the best player in that Toronto Defiant roster, so we can expect him to maintain his position on this team. It will be interesting to see what players Toronto puts around Hisu, because they could really go in any direction. They could do the Washington Justice of have Hisu here, equivalent to the Washington Justice Decay, and then just surround him with some absolute juggernauts of players. Or they could really get a whole cast of supporting players to make sure Hisu always has what he needs to pop off. At this point, nobody really knows which way the team could go, because they could go anyway. So let's move on to the Dallas Fuel. Now the Fuel have made quite a few changes, even though they did extremely well last year. So they've dropped Jexay, Repel, Pine and Xay, and now I'll go through those players. Jexay was definitely a weak part of this team. For improvements to be made to the Dallas Fuel roster, it was definitely at the main support role where changes needed to happen. Personally, I don't think Jexay is particularly bad. I could definitely see him on the lower tier team next year and maintain his position in the Overwatch League. But when you're playing on such a good team like the Dallas Fuel was, you have to be performing at a higher level than Jexay was. And a good main support replacing Jexay is just what the Dallas Fuel needs to really maintain their position as a great team. Then Repel being dropped is not that shocking to me either. However, if the Dallas Fuel stayed with only 1 flex support, I would be shocked by that. Repel was mainly played on Zen last season, and I don't think it was a coincidence that when Repel was out, the Fuel did better. Repel is definitely in the same boat as Jexay though. They're not bad players, and they definitely could improve a team. Just not a team of this level. I said a few seconds ago that I would be shocked if the Dallas Fuel kept with just 1 flex support, which is why I could see Lastro going to this team to replace Repel. Okay, a downside of this might be that Lastro isn't played always, which, I mean, Lastro, a player of that caliber, should probably be a full-time starter. But if we think about it, Repel was played for Zen mainly, and Lastro has a phenomenal Zen. But then also, he's able to go toe-to-toe with Fielder when it comes to the Baptiste and the Moira. If this happened, if Lastro went to the Fuel, I think this flex support line would be absolutely outstanding. They'd be able to cover every flex support and also every double flex support line that they need to cover to an extremely, astonishingly high degree. So then we've got Pine, and Pine did not play 1 second this season. I desperately want to see another team get Pine and play him, and for Pine to not just quit, because we were so hyped to see him last year and we just didn't see him. Would getting Pine be a tactically sound pickup? Maybe for a few teams, but would Pine get you a shit ton of fans? Oh my god, it would. Obviously, you'd actually have to play Pine, because we saw him on Dallas Fuel last year and nothing really came of it, but if a team played Pine, you'd probably be my favourite team. And then there's Xe. This is no surprise. Xe also didn't play last year because of medical conditions. When he does return, I'm sure a team will scoop him up right away, but for now, this is no surprise. However, we've got some breaking news. Halo has rumoured that Xe will be playing in the next season of American Contenders from Korea. That's right, boys. Xe is back in Pro Overwatch. He won't be in North America to compete. He's going to be in Korea playing on ping. But this is a good sign, lads. So is Xe ready to come back to the Overwatch League? Just testing that he's still got skill in the American Contenders region? This is very possible. So if this rumour is true, then Xe very well could be playing in Season 4 of the Overwatch League, as he's only on a short-term contract with this American Contenders team. So, if we see him play in American Contenders, then we're probably going to see him back in the Overwatch League, and this is a momentous occasion. Xe was such a dominant player on that Paris Eternal roster 2 years ago, and I can't wait to see him back. Speaking of which, next up, we're going to talk about the Paris Eternal. So, the Eternal dropped Onigod, Vestola, and Suna. And, unfortunately, I feel the likelihood is that none of these players are going to return to the Overwatch League next season. They had a good season on Paris, but I think that was very much as a result of great work they had as a team, and how much work the entire team put in. But then when we take out the players and pieces individually, I don't think they stack up with the average Overwatch League caliber of play. There's definitely a space for a couple of these players. For example, I could see Onigod or Suna going to the Boston Uprising, because they really need a good tracer player, but other than that, I think it's quite a stretch to say that these guys are confidently going to be in the next season of the Overwatch League. Okay, so next up, we've got the home of last season's MVP, the Chengdu Hunters, and let's just get straight into it. Ameng has been dropped. Yep, grab a tissue if you need to, I won't blame ya. It's a sad time. But let's be real for a second. Gaga was just better. Simple as that. Sure, let's have fun with the memeing about Chad, Ameng, Ryan, and off-meta Ball, but when it comes down to it, Ameng was useless on this team. Not useless as a player, I'm not saying that, just in the circumstances given. You're going up against Gaga, who's probably the second best Ball in the league. Any playtime you're given probably shouldn't be given. Will he go to another team? Probably not, but hear me out. I've got an idea for the greatest team you'll ever see. This is how you get the world's biggest fan base. Whatever team has the lowest fan base at the moment, it's probably something like London or Boston or Vancouver, one of those guys. For you guys, I got a plan for you. Pick up Pine and pick up Ameng and meme every single game. That's how you get the fans. But that's it for the Chengdu Hunters. Now let's go on to the final team I've got for you today, and it's the Philadelphia Fusion. We're going to see Mano retire from Pro Overwatch now. It's definitely sad to see him go. He definitely could have been a good main tank to have for Season 5, because he could flex onto pretty much all the main tanks with no worries, really. The Fusion, though, are not too harmed by this, I'd say. I wouldn't say Mano was one of their star players, because when you look at this roster, he just wasn't, and when you look at them played, he just wasn't. What about this? Sado returning to the Fusion. But that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share. Comment down below the worst changes made by a team in this video and the best made by a team in this video, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you.